What's going on, everyone? Fearless Football Forecast here. It is NFL Week 7 coming up. We unfortunately missed Week 6 last week due to some technical issues. I ended up leaving my laptop on a flight. It was horrible, but thankfully we got it back, and here we are. We're ready to kick ass, how we have been doing all year long, giving you guys some great picks. We do have a little bit of news to talk about, and I'm sure you want to be the one to introduce that since it's one of your favorite players.
Yeah, this one's really sad. Anthony Richardson, the rookie quarterback, he's shown some great flashes so far this season. He's officially out for the year. He's going to get He's going to get surgery on that shoulder injury that he had 2 weeks ago. And, it makes sense. The Colts, quite honestly, while they're in a position to where they could potentially win the division and go to the playoffs, they don't have the horses to actually go and win a Super Bowl. So why risk forcing them back early, when your team's not in a position to win? But it just sucks that he's not going to be able to get that experience this year. And what really sucks is that he got hurt, I think, every game he played in, which is a big concern. People are always scared with running quarterbacks that might happen. And, it's just, and I don't think all of them was because he was running. Like the shoulder thing, it was just a weird tackle. It didn't matter if it was a run or if he was in the pocket. It was just the way he got thrown down. Um, but it's just really sad, and you really, really hope that he gets this surgery, he heals up, and next year he could just have a free run of health, because I think that if he can stay healthy, he can truly be an impactful player in the NFL, and he's obviously an extremely exciting player at the very least.
Yeah, Richardson really wowed me a lot. I mean, I watched him in college live all the time, being a Florida Gator, and I really thought that it would take him a lot longer to actually adjust to the NFL. But he seemed so poised. He had great composure in the pocket. He was able to make some special plays, really, and keep the team within close point spreads with different opponents. That Rams game, his last game was actually a really great performance from him. He ended up driving down at the very last minute of the game to force overtime. They did end up losing that game, but still, it just showed that he is a special, special quarterback. Like you said, he did get injured in pretty much every single game. There were a lot of concussion worries. He's definitely going to have to work on break falls and learning just how to slide in the offseason. But I wouldn't be shocked if Richardson comes back, it has a full slate of health, and then is comeback player of the year next year, because he truly is special. And the rest of the Colts team, I don't think they were even expecting to do as well as they have at this point. If you told any of those guys in the locker room that they would have been 3-3, I think they'd be a little bit shocked. So at the end of the day, they still are going to be amped for next season with Richardson at the helm. And right now, we're going to be giving you our dog of the week. So far, we've been knocking it out of the park with these. But this week, we're going very, very risky. It's a spot that I really like, and it is the Chargers. Now, the Chargers had one of their worst performances this week against the Dallas Cowboys. Dak looked decent, but at the end of the day, it was still a much lower scoring game than I thought it was going to be. Justin Herbert seems to be similar to Josh Allen in that he keeps struggling in these primetime games, but always owns the early slate. This is a matchup against the Chiefs where I feel like the Chiefs are riding high, but they've been in close games. Like even last week against the Vikings, they didn't win in as much of a dominant fashion as you would have thought without Justin Jefferson being there. And the week before that against the Jets, it was very close. So I think the Chiefs are just due for a surprising upset, similar to the way that they were upset in week 1. And I wouldn't be shocked if it came from this Chargers offense that might start getting into groove. The Cowboys defense is much more explosive than the Chiefs. The Chiefs still have some grinders up front, but as far as confusing the quarterback and confusing some of these younger players that they're now dependent on, with a guy like Mike Williams being out, I think that the Chargers bounce back. I think Quentin Johnson actually has his first good game of the season this week. And I like them. I mean, definitely against the spread, but to take them at plus 250 is incredible value on a team in a divisional matchup. I like it a lot.
Yeah, in regards to the spread, I love them. Getting 5.5 points in a game that's, no matter who wins, it's going to be a 3-point game more than likely. I mean, every single time these two teams play, it comes down to the last possession. Um, So that's one thing. The Chargers are going to be able to keep it close. I actually think that Eckler is going to have a good game running the ball. The Dallas defense did a really good job actually containing him in the run game, and they got a ton of pressure. And really, Herbert missed. This is one of Herbert's worst games in a while, in my opinion. He just missed a ton of throws that usually he makes. Two times he had Keenan Allen wide open for a big play and he just missed them. That's things that you don't really see from Herbert very often. And I think a big reason of that was because even though on those plays he wasn't getting pressured, the pressure was in his head because the Dallas defense was getting so much pressure really that entire game. But yeah, to me, this is a field goal game. I think that the Chiefs. It kind of reminds me of the Eagles, where I mentioned a couple weeks ago that they're just playing sloppy, and one of these games they're just not. They're just not going to be able to win every week. And while the Chiefs they do look like the better overall team, I think that they're just not playing up to their talent. I should say their offense just is not clicking. I think this is going to be a wake up game for them. I think that they're going to get punched in the chin, and then after this week, next week, look out because I think that the Chiefs are finally gonna. They need a loss to wake themselves up a little bit. I just feel like they're kind of running through the motions, which they always do early in the season. It feels like. But I think that a divisional game, the Chargers, it's not a must win, but it's for a game so early in the season, it's as close as it could be. I mean,
Yeah,
week
if they want to have
7,
any chance at winning the
yeah,
division, they
yeah,
have to
exactly,
win now.
and a
And the
competitive
Chiefs
AFC.
and the Chiefs didn't really look that great even against the Broncos, who have been letting up massive numbers. I mean, Zach Wilson and the Jets look just as good as Mahomes and the Chiefs did against the Broncos back-to-back weeks. So we shall see. I think if it goes to a shootout, it favors the Chargers. A close game, probably the Chiefs are gonna, with Andy Reid, pull it out. And up next, our next segment, we have actually been killing this one. If you took our picks from, like I said, we didn't do one last week, but 2 weeks ago and parlayed them, you would have got a lot of money. And that same goes for this week as well. We are doing our touchdown scores. And right now we've been trying to, finding some difficulty finding the lines on these players. So I actually went with a guy who the line is available for, and that is Alvin Kamara. It's at plus 105 right now. The reason the line is out is because it's the Thursday night game. I really love this because Kamara has been on fire since coming back. I mean, for fantasy football and just in real life, he's looked fantastic. He's getting anywhere between 25 to 30 touches a game between the rushing and receiving. And he's a player that really always steps up in prime time. Like if you remember in Christmas, that 5 touchdown game that he had not too long ago. I wouldn't be shocked if Kamara gets 2 touchdowns this week. I think that, the rate that the Saints have been playing, they're realizing the strengths and the weaknesses of Carr. I think that by the end of the season, Derek Carr is fully integrated into this offense and it becomes more vertical. But in a game where Trevor Lawrence might be missing, and even if he is playing, he's not going to be playing at 100%. I expect the Saints to go up early and grind the ball out with some runs. So I really like Kamara getting in the end zone this week.
Yeah, and I'm going to go with a guy who I just double checked to see as of right now. There's only 2 games up. These sports folks need to step it up, but I'm going to go with Latavius Murray. I'm expecting his odds to be at least plus 200, anywhere from plus 220 to plus 225 to plus 245 is where I expect him to kind of fall. Damian Harris should be out for this game. Pretty much every time somebody's had a concussion, they've missed the game the next week. The only exception has been Luke Musgrave, but he played on a Thursday night game when he got the concussion. Everybody else has missed the next week. So I expect Damian Harris to miss this game, and if he does, Latavius Murray is going to be the pounding running back for the Buffalo Bills, one of the best offenses in the league. And while the Patriots are known as a good defense, they haven't really been this year. They looked good the first month of the season. You lose Judon, you lose Gonzalez. They've gotten their brains beaten in, 2 times in the past few weeks. I think they're kind of just demoralized over there. And the Bills have New England's number. It seems like every time they play, they win by margin. So I expect the Bills to actually have a pretty good offensive game, score maybe 30 points, and I think that Latavius Murray is going to have a big day getting all the red zone touches.
Latavius Murray, 10 years later, he is still breaking out whenever he is needed. And before we jump into all the matchups, I just want to remind everyone of the bye teams. There's a lot of interesting teams this week on bye. We got a lot of some powerhouses, some like lower tier teams, and then just some teams that have been pretty interesting throughout the year, like the Texans and Jets. So we got the Panthers, the Bengals, the Cowboys, the Texans, the Jets, and the Titans. A lot of buys this week. And that gives us the first game of the week, which is on Thursday, and it is the Jacksonville Jaguars taking on the New Orleans Saints. Now, this is a game where, for me, everything comes down to the health of Trevor Lawrence. The Jags are coming off of a high. They've won consecutively in their, real hometown of London. And then they ended up getting another win last week against the division rival. This is a weird matchup, two teams that I liked a lot coming into this year. The Saints defense has shown to be a force, and they've been holding teams to like less than 20 points in the majority of their games. And I think that if that does happen again, the Saints are going to end up etching this one out. I do like the Saints in this matchup. I feel like Derek Carr every single week is just getting better and better in the Saints offense. It seems like his connection with Olave is growing. And like I said, I think that Kamara is going to do well. The Jaguars need to find their identity. And they keep, like, even last week, they went up pretty big, and then they ended up almost losing the game in the very end. And I don't think that they can do that against a team like the Saints. So this is a big game. I'm staying away from it as far as betting goes. I wouldn't touch this game with a 10-foot pole. But if I had to pick one, I'm going to go with the Saints.
Yeah, so I actually see this game the exact same way. I just think that the Saints defense with gimpy Trevor Lawrence is going to be able to contain the offensive firepower that the Jaguars have. So what I saw in the injury reports, Ramchek's out for the Saints, but then Zay Jones and Tyson Campbell are out for the Jaguars. So right now it's like an even split on who's in, who's out. If Trevor Lawrence is out, I really don't think that the Jaguars have a chance to win. I think they could keep it close because their defense has been good this year, and I'm not expecting the Saints to ever be in a position to blow somebody out, except if you're one of the worst teams in the NFL, like the Patriots. But yeah, I think that this is just a bad spot game for the Jags. They're really running off of a hot streak these past few weeks. And Saints at home, phenomenal defense, and it's a really good matchup for them in the sense that the Jags really have only blown up explosive offensively like twice this year. They haven't been great on offense. They've been kind of streaky. I think that helps the Saints. They're not going to have to score to win, essentially. So I think that this is going to be a lower scoring game. I'm kind of seeing it like 21-17, something like that, maybe 24-20. I think the Saints are going to be able to take this one at home, led by the defense.
And next up, we have the Lions versus the Ravens in what I would probably consider the best game out of this 1:00 slate. This is definitely the game that I will be watching. Two teams that have been, doing very well, but there's also been some question marks in their play. The Lions right now are tied for the best record in the NFL, which is crazy to think. But they do look very legit. This is a game where I think it's a complete coin flip. The loss of David Montgomery is going to be the main reason why I do go with the Baltimore Ravens. And it seems like each week the Ravens, similar to like what I was saying with Derek Carr and the Saints, it seems more and more like the offensive coordinator is finally starting to take a hold of the Ravens offense. And they do need to win this game. The fact that they lost that game early in the season to the Colts and then ended up blowing that game against the Steelers, this game for me really feels like a must win, especially with the Bengals starting to bounce back as far as maintaining their control in the division lead.
Yeah, I like the Ravens as well. The Ravens has been one of those teams that have looked okay in every game, but they just haven't been able to put away games. They just let teams linger around. Um, I think that the Lions are going to be competitive in this game, the entire game, but I actually think that the Ravens are going to end up winning by a margin. I think they're going to win by like 10 points, quite honestly. I just think that the Ravens are, the Lions have played the best two teams they played. The Chiefs, they played the Chiefs, the Seahawks, and the Packers are probably the best three teams that they played. The Packers, we'll see coming out of the bye. I might have been wrong on them. Who knows? But the Seahawks, they are what they are. They're a middle of the pack, wild card team in the NFC, and they ended up losing that game. And then the Chiefs, all those drops, they only scored 14 points. I think that the Ravens defense is going to be able to handle the Lions pretty well. Like you said, no Montgomery. If Gibbs plays, he's not going to be 100%. I just don't think that the Lions are going to be able to put out this explosive output, and their defense has been really good, like surprisingly good, especially their defensive line's been getting a ton of pressure. I just think that in a game where the Ravens are kind of built in a sense to just grind the clock out and win games dirty, I think it's just a bad matchup for them, especially going to Baltimore. So I see the Ravens win this game as well.
And as of now, they don't even know if Jahmyr Gibbs is going to be going. So their entire running back group is going to be relying on Craig, who nobody's really heard of before this year. Up next is a game where I really want to hear your opinion on. The Buffalo Bills looked really bad last week against the Giants. I don't know what it is about Josh Allen in primetime. He just seems so incredibly unreliable. But this is a matchup against a team in the Patriots that I think I was right in the season. Like if there was one pick that I say I was probably the most right on, it would be saying that the Patriots were going to be abysmal. I mean, they're under 7.5 wins, might have been the freest money I've ever made in my life. And they're in the hunt now for Caleb Williams. And if I'm Belichick, I'm tired of this shit quarterback play, and I would be down in the tank. If you either try your best this year and keep trying to be in the games and retire at the end of the year, or go after the next great quarterback and then try and rebuild whatever you had with the Patriots dynasty. And I think that Belichick's a smart enough guy to realize that that's probably the more likely scenario if he ever wants to actually win. So I'm not saying they're going to lay down. This game is in Foxborough. The Bills got a lot of criticism after their matchup against the Giants last week. But as far as talent goes, it just shouldn't be close in terms of the offensive output. I think even if the Patriots make this game close, they're not going to be able to score more than 14 points. And I think the Bills can score more than 14 points. Do I believe in the spread being -9? Maybe not. I'd like to hear your thoughts on that. But I think that the Bills still get this one done.
Yeah, so I touched on it a tad when I was talking about Latavius Murray earlier. I think that the Bills are going to cover the spread. I think they win by at least 10. I could honestly see them winning by more. I just don't think so. I think Belichick's ego is too big to go on a losing streak and tank for Caleb, quite honestly. While I agree, I think that's the best thing for the Patriots, especially to do. They're just not good. One of the things that people have brought up time and time again is that Belichick, he's doing like the coach GM thing, and he's not the best GM. He just gets the most out of his players. He's good with defensive personnel, but he's not really been good on the offensive side. And I think it just caught up to him. Obviously, he had Brady covering it for years and years. When you have the best quarterback of all time, he can do things like that. But now you're coming into a guy with Mac Jones, who I think has just regressed as he's been in the league longer and longer. I think he's one of those guys who's a head case, and I think he's ruined. Some quarterbacks just get ruined, and I think that he's one of them. I think that the Bills are going to dominate this game. Their defense is really good. The Patriots' offense sucks. Their offense has been inconsistent, yes, but they have found ways to score against this Patriots team. And without their best edge rusher and probably their best corner, I just don't see this game being close. And I don't think it's going to be interesting. I think it's going to be one of those games that is over in the second quarter. And, you know, it's just going to be, oh, okay, the Bill scored again, Bill scored again. Like, I just think that they're going to eventually just milk the clock. That's the only reason I'd be a little bit scared of the spread is at one point the Bills just go, this team can't even score. Let's just run the clock, milk it out. But I don't see this game being close whatsoever.
Okay, good. That makes me feel a little bit better about my suicide pick for the week. That's why I wanted to hear it from you because I didn't want to be too biased. But I am still alive in the suicide pool, so there is a chance at winning $100,000 for me still on the table. Another team I was considering for the suicide pool this week and just in general is the Cleveland Browns taking on the Indianapolis Colts. The Browns just got one of the biggest wins of the season. PJ Walker ended up upsetting the 49ers. Brock Purdy had a bad game. That Browns defense might actually be the best in the league. They've been just so incredible in every single matchup so far this year. Amari Cooper also just what a fantastic talent. Did you see the catch? I know you said you didn't watch many of the game last week, but did you see that catch on the sideline
Yeah, I did
when he
actually see that
jumped out?
one.
I mean, that
He
was
just bullied him. He
fantastic.
landed right where, yeah.
So fantastic. And it's looking like Deshaun Watson might actually play. And if Deshaun Watson does play, I don't think that this game's going to be close. Gardner Minshew has been fun with the Colts, but this is a matchup where I don't think that he's going to be able to do anything against this Browns defense. I think that they might have a one or two defensive touchdowns in this one. I see a lot of turnovers. Even if this game is low scoring, I don't see a world where the Browns lose unless PJ Walker has an abysmal game. But like I said, I think it's every single day it's looking closer and closer like Deshaun Watson is going to be back. I mean, even on fantasy, he started with a D and now he's got a Q next to his name, hoping it turns into a P later in the week. But this is a game that you really have to monitor. Like I said, I would feel more comfortable. Like if Deshaun Watson plays, I would think that this is more of a lock than the Bills winning. But if Deshaun Watson doesn't play, then I would pick the Bills. But I'm going to monitor this game. But at the end of the day, even without Watson, my pick is still the Browns.
Yeah, did you hear what Watson said about his shoulder?
No.
So somebody was
Today?
asking him a question. Yeah, it was either yesterday or today. I think it was this morning though. And they were like, so like, what's up with your shoulder? When are you going to be good to go? And he was like, I really don't know, man. Could be tomorrow, could be Sunday, could be 2 weeks from now. Like he's just like, and apparently it's more of like a pain tolerance thing than anything else. And quite honestly, I try not to question the character of many players, but I will question his character. He's not one of those like if Nick Chubb, if somebody said if we pop this thing in, if we could pop your leg back in, in a couple weeks you have a chance to play, you might get hurt again. Nick Chubb would be like, fuck it, dude, I'm ready to go. Deshaun Watson is the exact opposite. He's got his money. He doesn't care. I just don't. Sorry, not to get into that, but he the only thing that concerns me whatsoever is right now that the Browns are only laying 3 points. Seems odd to me. I think even with PJ Walker, they should be a touchdown favorite. But even so, I'm not going to let Vegas sports lines dissuade me on my gut feeling, which is that I think that the Colts offense is going to have a very hard time scoring against this Browns defense. I think at most, at perfect game is a 17-point game, and it's because PJ Walker fumbles in the red zone type thing. So I think that in reality, this game is probably like a 24-14 game, 24-10, something like that. It's just going to be ugly, defense dominating. One of the things that's really exciting, that's been exciting for me this year, is that obviously the Browns, they're not winning the division right now, but the games that they've lost, they've been, the one was just a rookie getting thrown into, oblivion. But the fact that their defense is so good, and this is really Jim Schwartz is a phenomenal defensive coordinator, but their defense is so good that they're going to be in every single game, and it's going to come down to don't make a mistake. And while I think the Colts have a decent, like a good defensive line, I don't think that it's going to cause enough havoc to where PJ Walker ruins this game for the Browns. So I'm going to go with the Browns. Although he tried to ruin it for him last week with that throw on the goal line, but I like the Browns this week. I think that they'll win comfortably. I just think that their defense is going to smother Minch for the whole game. Five
Yeah.
plus sacks.
And a game that is close, a divisional matchup with two teams that are actually doing much better than a lot of people would have thought, is the Falcons and the Buccaneers, and the line actually just changed as I clicked on it. The spread for the Buccaneers is getting bigger and bigger. It just went from -1.5 to -2.5. So right now, Tampa is favored. Desmond Ritter hasn't looked great this year. He's been doing better. Um, he's just so strange. It just seems like each matchup, he either is abysmal or he's pretty decent. Last week, you got to see Drake London a little bit more involved. Kyle Pitts has been more involved lately. He's been doing better. And the Bucks, I'm gonna go with the Falcons in this one just because I don't think that Baker has had a really bad game yet, and I think he's due for one. And this is a spot at home where I think a lot of people were expecting the Bucks to win, and because of how inconsistent Ritter's been, they're going to go with the Bucks. But even though the Bucks defense is pretty good, the Falcons have been very savvy. Like, I've enjoyed watching the Falcons play football. I know that probably sounds like a crazy thing, but I like Arthur Smith. I like the fact that they utilize all their running backs. I love Bijan Robinson. And like, Ritter is bad, but he's like good bad, as in like he could throw a pick and then the next drive it's like a 4th and 4 and it's a read option and then he takes it around the end and you're like, okay, all right, he can actually ball. So I do like the Falcons in this matchup, and I'm going to take them as the underdogs.
Yeah, so I'm going to be on the opposite side of you with this one. I'm going to go with the Bucks. The Bucks, to me, every year we have those teams that they beat the teams that are worse than them or in their weight class, and as soon as they play somebody better than them, they lose. And I think that the Bucks are the poster child for that team this year. Their defense is really good. It's been really, really good this year. And like you said, the one thing that you said that's always in the back of my mind when I'm supporting the Bucks team, when I pick the Bucks in a game like this, is when is Baker going to implode? And I think at this point in the season, he's shown to me. Well, really, I think he hasn't been getting pressured much. And when he starts to get pressured is when he starts to fall apart. And for me, I think that at this point, until I see one of those old school Baker games where he just sucks the game up and loses it for his team, I'm going to just trust this Buccaneers team to get the wins over the teams that don't have a significant advantage over them. I think that Ritter has been good and bad in spots. They've been passing the ball a lot more recently because teams are just saying sell out on the run, make them pass because Ritter is bound to make a mistake, and I kind of see it that way. I think that while there's every chance in the world that Baker could make a mistake, I think that it's just as likely, possibly even more likely, because the Bucks defensive line and linebackers are going to be able to contain the run, in my opinion. That Ritter makes a couple mistakes. So I'm going to go with the Bucks here. I think that their defense just wills them to a victory. To be honest, I think it's going to be a lower scoring game. I'm going to say like 20 to 14, 20 to 17, something like that.
And up next, we have another divisional showcase between two bottom feeder teams, but one is actually kind of surging. It is the Washington Commanders taking on the New York Giants. The Commanders' offense has really been so different the last 3 weeks. I mean, you can really tell with Bieniemy the impact that he's had, and Sam Howell has really grown as a player. I mean, 3 weeks ago they were in that great game against the Eagles where they almost upset them. Then you had the dud loss to the Bears, but they still put up 24 points in the second half. And then last week their offense completely rolled over a Falcons defense that I don't think is too bad. I like the Commanders in this spot. Their defensive line should just eat. Daniel Jones, I feel awful for him. He's been sacked so much, and it doesn't seem like their offense can really do anything. Saquon being back in this matchup, I don't think is gonna actually really pay any dividends. The Bills' run D is something that is a little concerning. And Saquon was able to take advantage of it. I expected him to have a big game last week, but I don't really see that happening against the Commanders. I see the Commanders getting a lot of sacks, and even though it's on the road, it's a divisional matchup, and I'm going to favor the Commanders in this one.
Yeah, so this is the game that it's probably the game that I'm most like on. To me, I do think that the Commanders are a better team, but this is my gut check game of the week. I just have a gut feeling that the Giants are going to win this game. Divisional opponent, I think that the Giants are going to be able to control the Commanders' offense a little bit more than they've been these past couple weeks. I just think it's going to be a close game. I don't think that the Giants are going to have to put up this explosive output to win. I think just kind of maintain the clock, run the ball down their throats. Hope Barkley breaks away on a couple of runs. Again, it's one of those games that I wouldn't go near with 100-foot pole, money wise, monetarily wise, but it's just my gut tells me Giants.
And the last game of the 1 o'clock slate's the official toilet bowl. We're about to get Brian Hoyer versus Badgent making his first NFL start. You got to go with the Raiders in this one. I mean, we got a guy who we don't even know, unless he's the next Brock Purdy, which he very well could be. I don't see a chance in hell that this Bears team wins this game. I can't believe the line is minus 155 for the Raiders. The Raiders have been pretty good. Like, they haven't been bad. All their losses have been pretty close, and their victories haven't come pretty, but that defensive line is no joke. And for a rookie quarterback that's making his debut, I wouldn't want to be facing Max Crosby on every single play. Devontae Adams has been great. Josh Jacobs is starting to, find his own a little bit. Jacoby Myers getting involved, and another player that we're going to talk about later we think is going to have a good game in this one. If the Bears offense can't be good with Justin Fields, I don't see how it can be good with Badgett. So I feel like this is the third game where I've said today, like, just that even if it's a close game, there's one team that is incapable of scoring, and that's why the other team's going to win. Like, I trust at least Daniel Carlson, the kicker of the Raiders, to make more field goals than Badgett can even get in the field goal range for the Bears. So for that reason, I'm going to favor the Raiders.
Yeah, the Raiders are another team that when I was talking about the Bucks, I don't think they're as good as the Bucks, quite honestly, but they remind me in that same situation. They're going to beat the teams that aren't as good as them. The Bears, with Fields, are they a good team? We really don't know. They've had a couple of good games so far this year. But without Fields, without those big dynamic plays that he has in the run game, and he has, while he's not the most accurate guy, he can throw it deep. He has a cannon. He can throw, he's got the throw power at the very least. I just don't see how they could do it. My biggest concern, like you said, is this defensive line. I think Max Crosby is going to eat the offensive line of the Bears apart this week. I just think that I don't think Badgett is going to be terrible for the situation that he's in. To be fair to him, I don't know why I'm being fair to him. It's not like he's going to be a stud or anything, but I think that he's going to have a game where you're just like, he tried his best. He had 150 yards, but I think he's going to be under constant pressure all game. And I just think that the Raiders are a better team, and without Fields, it's not even close. I think the Raiders are going to be able to take care of business.
And moving on to the 4 o'clock slate. First game, we got a lot of divisional matchups this week. I'm just going to stop saying another divisional matchup because it seems like they all are. We got the Cardinals and the Seahawks. Seahawks pretty significant favorites in this one. I think that the Cardinals are now getting a little bit of life. They obviously upset Dallas a bunch of weeks ago, and they keep being close in every single game. But it's just getting to the point now where other teams are gelling, and without your actual quarterback, it's just not going to happen for them. And the Seahawks ended up losing that game last week against the Bengals. I think this is a perfect bounce back spot. I don't even think there's a question on this one. I like the Seahawks to win. I think the Seahawks dominate this game and, just really bounce back after that tough loss to the Bengals.
Yeah, I agree. I think that they win this game again. I think they'll cover. I think the line last time I checked was at 8.5. I think that they cover that. I think they'll win by at least 10. Yeah, like you said, Gino looked bad last week. Like, I think that the loss was more on Gino making mistakes than the Bengals being good, quite honestly. Like, Gino just every time there was an opportunity to score, even a field, like they were in the red zone and he like you could get a field goal, tie the game maybe. Um, and he just threw that pick in the end zone. So, you know, I think that this is going to be a get right game for them. They're like you said, the point that I really like that you mentioned that I was going to mention. I think that the Cardinals, the first few weeks, they were that team that everyone was like, oh, they're going to suck. They're going to have the first two picks in the draft, and they were kind of feisty. I think that as this season is going along, like you said, the teams are starting to figure themselves out, the opposing teams. And I think that a team that has themselves figured out is going to be able to impose their will on the Cardinals. They ended up being what we thought they were going to be. You know, it'll be fun to see. You know, Kyler got designated to return today, so you know he's got 3 weeks to play. So it'll be exciting once he plays. I think they'll be like a fun team that wins those weird games. But right now with Dobbs, I just don't see it. I think that the Seahawks are going to be able to handle this game.
And up next is a game that I think we're split on. We got the Steelers and the Rams. Pittsburgh's offense just hasn't looked like it's really that capable, whereas the Rams have been putting up monstrous numbers every single week. Even in defeats, they're putting up great numbers. Matthew Stafford has been awesome this year with Puka Nacua. This is now the third game that Cooper Kupp has been active, so I think that he's going to make like a big difference in this matchup. The Saints, I mean, the Steelers need to get their run game activated, and I just don't think that this is the game to do so. Kyron Williams being out is really my only question mark as far as the Rams go. But Sean McVay's offense has always been one of those where you can just plug the next guy in, and they have good rushing production. They signed 2 new backs this week. And I'm a big fan of the rookie Zach Evans, so I think he has a pretty solid game. I like the Rams in this one. I do think it's extremely close. This is one of the closest games of the week for me. I think this is a 3 game either way it goes, but I'm going to lean with the Rams.
Yeah, and I'm repping the Steelers. So obviously, part of the reason I did that is because I think that they're going to win as an underdog this week. Tomlin as an underdog, historically they're a good team. Coming off the bye week, an extra week to prepare. Hopefully, try and Pickett gets a week for that knee to heal up a little bit. Hopefully, kind of getting their offense a little bit more in rhythm is what I'm hoping for. But also, I think that the Rams are one of those teams that they're good, but they're not one of those teams that is great. Like what we've seen with the Steelers is they've had a pretty tough schedule, and even though they've had fluky wins against good teams. You know what I mean? So I think that the Rams and the Steelers are actually pretty similar teams, like talent wise. But I think that overall the Steelers are a better team. I just think that their defense, specifically TJ Watt, is going to be able to get some pressure in this game. And I think that their offense, and you know, maybe not, I've been saying it for a lot of this year. I think that the offense, especially with Deontay Johnson coming back out of the bye week, I think that's going to be really big for this offense, not just completely relying on Pickens. Even Fryermuth was out for a week. He's going to be back, or a couple weeks. He's going to be back. I just think that the offense is going to be a lot better. Not that it's going to blow anybody's doors off, but I think it's going to be able to at least outscore the Rams with TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith making 2 or 3 crazy impactful plays at some point.
Like I said, I wouldn't be shocked either way this game goes. We already talked about the Chargers and the Chiefs, so that brings us to the final game of the 4 o'clock slate, which is the Packers and the Broncos. I just switched my pick last second. That's what I was just doing. I originally had the Packers in this game, but I feel like the Broncos, you know, they played last Thursday, so it's giving an elite coach extra time to prepare. The Broncos are a team where, like, if they need to start piling on wins, they need to do it now. Like, it's either they are a full rebuild going into next year, or they're going to actually try and make a late push. And I'm leaning toward that second half. They had a good game against the Chiefs, and they had a close game against the Jets the week before. They're not getting steamrolled anymore. I do think that the Packers offense has a good game in this one. I like this game to be a shootout, but I also think that the Broncos end up getting a win. I don't think Sean Payton came back to lose as many games as they are. And this Packers defense has been good, but has shown to be exposed. I mean, even a guy we talked about who we've been saying isn't that good in Desmond Ritter had a fantastic game against the Packers, got blown out by the Lions. I think this is a spot where the Broncos win at home. It's just, the elements of Denver combined with the dire situation to actually pick up a win for the Broncos. I really like them this week, actually.
It's pretty funny because I agree with everything you're saying, but actually on the Packers side, bye week, I think that LaFleur is a good coach. Giving him a bye week is going to do them well. Obviously, mini bye for the Broncos, but I think having that full week off, I'm really, again, this same thing I said with the Steelers. I think that this is going to be a big week for the Packers moving forward. I'm hoping that they kind of work out the kinks with Jordan Love. You've seen it's been so weird because one play he makes an amazing throw, and then the next play one play he throws a deep bomb to Watson and hits him in the chest, and then on the run, and the next play he throws an interception to a scrub cornerback on the Raiders. No, but I think that they're going to kind of work out the kinks, and I just don't think that the Broncos are good enough to be able to stop the Packers to the point where if the Broncos defense was any good whatsoever, I would be concerned. And I know that they had a good week against the Chiefs. I think that the Chiefs are just, I don't know what's wrong with them right now. I think that they're just in their head too much. I don't know. And you look at it, they had the ball the first three possessions. I think it was the first three possessions. They had the ball in the red zone and they scored 3 points because they threw that pick. But yeah, it's just one of those things where I think that the Packers are a better team. And it's funny what you said. I think that Sean Payton did want to kind of come back and take the league by storm. But I think that he is different from Bill Belichick to where he's here for the long haul. First off, he signed a long-term deal. I think that he's willing to take all this criticism for the whole year to just say, if he obviously does not like Russell Wilson. He talks shit on him every other week. And I think that he's truly willing to have a complete shit show of a season and, try and trade Russell Wilson for like a 4th-round pick just to get the cap space off the books and just wipe this team and get a Caleb Williams or Drake May. Because I think at the end of the day, like I said, I think he wanted to be competitive, but now that he knows Russell Wilson isn't the guy, this is just me assuming, quite honestly, but I really do feel this way. I think he knows that in this division where you're playing against Mahomes, you're playing against Herbert, you need to have a true difference maker at quarterback to actually want to do anything to compete for the division. So I think that that's the way it's going to go. I see it being, when you were given the 2 examples, I see it going the former way where the Broncos just kind of skid out for the rest of the season. I think that they're going to win a couple more games. I just don't think this is going to be the one.
And the Sunday night game is a game where everyone should get their popcorn ready. This is definitely the most anticipated game of the week, without a doubt. And this is a true test for the Eagles. Like, as a non-Eagles fan, I've been watching every single Eagles game, and it just seems like they have not been the same team that they were last year. They've been winning. They won every single game up until last week, but they were keeping it close with bad teams. The passing game didn't look the same. And then last week they ended up losing to the Jets. And the real question in this game is going to be, can the Eagles sprint? Like, we know they can run the clock out. We know they can, dominate up front. We know they can tush push. But can they sprint? When it comes to it with the Dolphins, you're going to need to put points in order to beat them. I mean, the only game that the Dolphins have really looked vulnerable this year in was against the Bills, and that was because the Bills were out sprinting them. So this one, I am going to pick the Dolphins, but I'd be shocked if the Eagles bounce back. Like, if the Eagles win this game, it shows that they truly are still the elite team that they were last year. But if they lose, then it's going to just be like, all right, maybe they have actually taken a step back. Because this is going to be the first game where I do really think that the win or lose will be determined by Jalen Hurts, and that's the biggest question mark with the team right now. So I think this is the first game all season that it's truly been on Hurts to perform, and we're gonna see if he's built or not.
Yeah, so I'm going to take the Eagles here. I said it a couple weeks ago, even though I picked the Eagles in both of the past 2 weeks. I did say before that Rams game that I wouldn't be shocked if they drop a game because they've been sleepwalking the whole year. You know, they look good in parts in one game, and then another part of their team looks like shit. The next week, the part that looked good looks awful, and the people who did bad are doing good. A couple of things that I just want to mention. Our secondary needs help. Obviously, we had a couple, more injuries last week with Carter and Slay being out. Hopefully they'll play. But I think that either way, the Dolphins are going to score because they're going to be able to sling the ball. No one's been able to stop them except the Bills, and the Bills were just extremely physical. I think that the Eagles' defensive line is going to be able to make some plays. That's the only way that the Dolphins have gotten out of rhythm is pressure on Tua. And I think that the Eagles' defensive line can do it. I'm hoping Carter plays. He should play. And yet, to me, this game, like you said, it comes down to Jalen Hurts because, quite honestly, they lost that game because of Jalen Hurts last week. We were running the ball well last week, and I think Nick Sirianni kind of has been like a little pass happy, even though we've been dominating in the run all year because he knows that Hurts hasn't been the same, and he kind of wants him to get back in the groove. This is the perfect time to get back in that groove. The Dolphins' defense has not been good this year, and you're going to have to score. So I'm hoping that they wake up after losing to a Jets team that has no quarterback. Wilson's been better, but he's still, bottom 5 quarterbacks in the league. And I think that they're going to do it. I think that their defense is going to be able to make a couple more plays than the Dolphins' defense. And as long as Hurts doesn't force himself into bad throws, I think that our playmakers will be able to make plays against the Dolphins. I'm really excited for this game. I wouldn't be shocked if the Dolphins won, but like I said, I think that the Eagles, I'm hoping, but I also think that this is going to wake the Eagles up. Everyone's going to be on their A game. And really one of the big things with them is they've just been horrible in the red zone too, and I don't understand it. Part of it is obviously the new offensive coordinator, but at this point in the year, we're 6 weeks in, dude. That's not an excuse anymore. Get your fucking shit together. What's going on here? So I think that this is going to be the game where they go out there. I don't think that they're going to completely dominate by any means, but I do think they're going to win the game. And I think it's going to be like, okay, yeah, the Eagles haven't looked great, but they still have that ceiling game to be the best team in the NFL. And I'm very excited for this game. I think this is because of injuries and stuff that have gone on. Off the top of my head, I'm trying to think, but this is the primetime game that going into it, I think I'm the most excited for, just because.
Oh, without a doubt.
Yeah, the Chiefs. I love the Chiefs, but their offense has been shit. Rodgers, I was excited for the Jets with Rodgers, but Rodgers gets hurt. I think this game's going to be fantastic.
Yeah, this would be the first big Sunday Night Football feel.
That'll actually live up to it. I think it's truly going to live up to it.
Yeah, I agree. And like you said, the Eagles, if they win this game, they re-enter the conversation to be the best team in the league. Up next, speaking of another team that a lot of people would have thought was the best team in the league, the 49ers ended up dropping a game against the Browns. It was due that Brock Purdy was eventually going to lose. I think people have been really, really hard on him unnecessarily this week. He's still a young kid. He's still learning, and it's pretty impressive that he had all the wins that he did in a row. We were hyping up that Browns defense. I don't think a lot of people understand how truly amazing the Browns defense is. And then this is a matchup against primetime Kirk Cousins on Monday night. Without Justin Jefferson there, the Vikings have just seemed like if they don't get a defensive turnover, that ends up scoring. They're not winning games. I think this is a pretty easy pick that the 49ers bounce back. Now it's getting reports. I saw one today that McCaffrey and Debo might both play. I mean, if one or both of them play, I think it's even more easy for the 49ers to win this game. But even if they don't, I still lean with the Niners in this one. I wouldn't touch the spread on either side, but I just don't see a world where the Vikings can overcome that defense, especially when they're all pissed off, an extra day of rest, and they'll be upset after that loss against the Browns.
Yeah, I think the Niners are going to come back to life this week. Like you said, the Browns defense, I think, is the best in the league. Obviously, you're going to the Vikings defense, who is a significant step backwards. And like you said, if they don't play, if neither McCaffrey or Debo play, I still think that there's a good chance that the 49ers win this game. If one of them plays, I think there's a very good chance that they win this game. And if they both play, I'd be shocked if they lost the game. So it's kind of tier breakdown. But either way, I think that the 49ers are going to come bounce back and they're going to show who they are in prime time. They're one of those teams that I feel like some teams kind of, it's weird, like when they're in prime time, it's not weird for people to shrink Kirk Cousins, but I feel like it is weird when people kind of like, I don't know, they try and, I don't know. It was, you saw it when they played the Cowboys. Like all of a sudden, George Kittle's the best tight end in the league now, and he's been mediocre all year. But when it's prime time, everybody's watching. He balls out. So I feel like they have a lot of those types of players on their team. But I just think they're just better everywhere. If Justin Jefferson were here, maybe they'd have
That
a
would be the
chance.
that would be the question.
But and coming off of a loss, I just don't see them dropping two in a row in prime time. No Justin Jefferson. I mean, last week against the Bears defense, which is not good by any means. The Bears defense has not been good this year. The Vikings looked awful. Awful. So I think that this game, I honestly think that the Niners are going to win by 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, I like the Niners a lot in this matchup. And our final segment that basically wraps up all of our picks. There was a lot more differences this week compared to usual weeks as far as our picks go, which I think is good. That way people can see that we're not just agreeing on everything. And now we're moving on to our fantasy starts of the week. So you want to start off with your quarterback?
Yeah, I got you. So my quarterback, I mentioned them earlier. We're on different sides of this game, but Jordan Love off the bye week. I think that the Kinks are going to be worked out. This Broncos defense has been putrid. I think that he's just going to have a really good game. He's always, producing with his legs as well, which gives him that floor. But I think that he's going to have a good day passing. I'm honestly expecting him to have 3 total touchdowns. I just think that he's gonna take one of those games where 50 yards rushing, 3 total touchdowns, and you're just very happy with the performance of him.
Yeah, I love Jordan Love for fantasy this week. I tried picking him up in our main league, and I was beat to the punch in the waivers. And my start of the week is the player that we just talked about in the last game, and that's Brock Purdy. I think that he bounces back. Like you said, in prime time, George Kittle shows up. His connection has heightened with Brandon Ayuk this year, which makes me less concerned with Deebo Samuel not playing. And I can see a lot of checkdowns where they're really efficient with Elijah Mitchell. I think this offense, it's just going to be a point where Purdy is just using kind of the method that he used in year one, where he's just like dinking and dunking his way across the field. But I think that the stats, because of how bad the Vikings defense is, you're not going to be shocked if you look up and you see that he had over 300 passing yards and 2 touchdowns. So I am going to go with Brock Purdy because his upside, if Debo does play, it goes through the roof. And it's interesting this week, we actually agree on our running back start of the week, and that is Kenneth Walker. The Cardinals have just been so bad against the run this year, and Kenneth Walker is a guy who a lot of fantasy managers were probably really scared to draft this year, and they're all kicking themselves in the foot. Kenneth Walker has been phenomenal. Charbonnet has really only been utilized in special situations, but Kenneth Walker is still the goal line guy. Kenneth Walker has still had explosive plays. It's not just been volume. He's been kicking ass, really. Every time that he gets a carry, you can just see how different he is. Kenneth Walker is an incredible athlete, and it's a great matchup where they should be up.
Yeah, I think this is one of those things where obviously if you're in a normal fantasy league, you're going to start Kenneth Walker. He's been great all year, but I think that we were both emphasizing him because there's a really good chance, in my opinion, that he's the number one running back on the week. Kyron Williams had 150 yards rushing last week, and I think he had 140 of them in the second half. So if the Seahawks want to, they're just going to be able to come in and impose their will with their run game. And, you know, Kenneth Walker in every single week, no matter the opponent, because of the market share that he gets inside the 5 yard line, he has a chance for not just one touchdown, but maybe even two. And against a team where their run defense is so bad, towards the bottom of the league, I think that, you know, it's more likely than usual. I think that he's just going to eat up.
And my receiver of the week is actually in the same game. I'm going to go with Marquise Brown. Brown has actually been pretty sneaky this year for fantasy. He's been getting a lot of targets. This is a game where I expect them to be down the majority of this game, which means more passing volume. And he just hasn't had that monster game yet this season. He's had a couple 15, 16-point games, but I expect this to be a great game for him because the Seahawks secondary is definitely their weakness right now as far as giving up yardage. Now, they obviously have incredible players. Devin Witherspoon, I think, is going to be one of the best corners in the league. But as far as giving up fantasy points to wide receivers, the Seahawks have been really bad. So I really like Marquise Brown in this matchup.
Yeah, and my receiver, I'm going to go with Christian Watson. Like I said, I think Jordan Love is going to be a little more productive in the passing game this week than usual, and I think the primary beneficiary of that is going to be Christian Watson. While they do have Patrick Surtain, you've seen that number one receivers this year have still been able to produce against this Broncos team, and I think that Christian Watson, he's just so versatile. He can go deep. He's good in the red zone. You know, and I just think that he's going to have a big day against this bad Broncos defense.
And our tight end start of the week is the same as well. We're going with Michael Mayer on the Raiders. The Bears defense against tight ends has been so bad that Logan Thomas, who hasn't been relevant for fantasy in 7 years, had 97 yards against them and a touchdown. Michael Mayer is going to decimate this defense. The beautiful thing with Mayer is that he's such a great blocking tight end that he's actually going to be on the field almost all the time. And that's why I really liked him coming out of college. He was my number one ranked tight end actually going in the year. Obviously now after looking at Sam Laporta's efficiency, it could be argued, but maybe this is the game where Michael Mayer really breaks out.
Yeah, and I think that one of the weird things, the first month of the season, the Raiders just weren't using their tight ends. I'm pretty sure it was over the first month of the season, they targeted their tight end position less than 10 times. I forget the exact number, but it was like 7 targets in the first 4 games. And you've seen the talent from Mayer. Like you said, he's good blocking and he's a great receiver. He just knows where to be. I feel like he's a nice safety blanket. Brian Hoyer is one of those guys who's not really going to take shots like that. And I just think that with Adams having that shoulder injury, obviously, as the weeks go on, he's healthier and healthier. I just think that they don't want him to completely shoulder the load. And against this horrible Bears defense, I think Michael Mayer is really going to be able to pop out. I think that he's actually one of the reasons that, again, we hyper focus on him is because, in my opinion, I think that he's going to finish as a top 5 tight end this week. I think he's going to get a touchdown. And I think that there's a chance that he could get 2 if we get really lucky. I'm really excited for Mayer. I think that the talent, the opportunity is finally meeting up with the talent of Mayer. So I'm excited to see him ball out this week.
Yeah, you may see Mayer later in the week in our DFS lineups or best bets. So keep your eye open for the Raiders tight end, who we hope to be open a lot this week. Final segment. I'm still alive in suicide. I had the Chiefs last week. I am going to go with the Buffalo Bills this week. So let's keep it rolling, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us, and make sure to subscribe, turn on those notifications, and we will be back at you later in the week with the best bets in DFS.